we ride bonfire flames. They touch the sky, tradition strong, it'll never die. We march with grit, we grind with soul. Every army day, we're in control. Aggie spirit, it's a diamond glow. In and forever, let the world know. Step back, feel the Aggie heat. Tougher than the Texas beat. We rise, we shine, we never retreat. Cover Aggies, we don't quit. Heart so big, can't counterfeit. Fighting Texas, we legit. Gig 'em Aggies, this is it.
11 months ago, we sat in a room together and we talked about this moment. That when you get into this moment, you can't just want it. You've got to pay a price to earn it. You've got to pay a price to get on this stage. When you walk down the tunnel, think about everything you've done to prepare for this moment. They have not done what you have done. They are not ready to take this thing where you're willing to take it. Your togetherness is better, your effort is better, your culture is better, so put it on display for 3.5 hours and go get it. Howdy, Ags. Welcome into the Aggie Audible. I am your host, Lee Hillis, and CFP time is here. In College Station, Texas, the Aggies will take on the Miami Hurricanes. But before we get too into it, let's bring in our counterpart, Fighting Texas Aggie Class of 2022, Kyle Lovingood. You're muted.
Well, that didn't roll so smooth. I'll start over. Gig 'em, good game coming up. We got Miami college football playoff. I think that they're both the first time in the playoffs for both of them, so it's gonna be a good game.
But before we get to talking about this game, just like what Coach Elko did, we have to give a huge shout out to the Fighting Texas Aggie women's volleyball team. Final Four, went through the gauntlet against the #1 team in the country in Nebraska.
Yeah, I was watching those games. I'm telling you, I was hooping and hollering just like I would a football game. It was intense. It was fun to watch. It was good stuff.
But we're not here alone tonight. From Locked On Canes, we have Alex Deneau. Alex, how are you?
I'm just excited for the game. I'm happy to be here, and I think these are two teams that match up really well against each other, both very physical. And when you mentioned like the gauntlet for Aggies volleyball, whoever wins this game on Saturday is going to have a gauntlet, because whoever wins this game gets to play Ohio State. And then if you win that game, you get to play probably Georgia and then probably Indiana if you get all the way. So that's what I would call a gauntlet.
Yes. And I heard someone say that whoever wins this game very much likely could go win the national championship.
I certainly think it's the best game of the weekend coming up.
Because you've got Alabama, Oklahoma Thursday, or at the time of this recording, it'll be Friday night. Then you have A&M Miami. You've got Tulane and who is Ole Miss?
Ole Miss.
And then you have Oregon and James Madison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on James Madison and Tulane? And do you think they should restructure the playoff to kind of, or should one of those teams always make it? Or do we need 16 teams? What's the fix here?
Yeah, I mean, I think 16 is a good place to start, because when you're in this 12-team format, and I know, listen, they want to give opportunities to the group of 5, and we'll see if this weekend proves me wrong, but, I don't give Tulane, and they already got blown out by Ole Miss this year. Like I don't give them a chance against Ole Miss in the rematch, even with all the coaching departures and Kiffin. I think Ole Miss is just way too talented, and if anything, they'll probably be extra motivated after all the Kiffin stuff for this week. I
Yep.
don't give JMU any chance against Oregon, so I know like it sounds a little cold, but it's like this is not college basketball. Like this is college football, where when you have physical advantages that the P4 teams, elite ones, have against group of five, like honestly, to me it doesn't feel right that JMU and Tulane are taking playoff spots away from teams like Notre Dame and BYU, who I would fare a lot better if they had an opportunity in this tournament. So I would be a fan of if you, and I don't think they are going to keep it at 12, but if you keep it at 12, maybe you do a group of five playoff, like have a separate playoff, and maybe if you do go to 16, the problem kind of solves itself. But I don't give JMU and Tulane a chance in this bracket at all.
So before we go any further, we do have breaking news. Legend Bay, who signed with Tennessee, has been released from his national letter of intent from Tennessee, and he will now officially sign with Ohio State.
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy. It's like after the due date and you coming back to revisit it.
Yeah, right. And the due date was just a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago, signing day.
Yeah.
So wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Well, I mean, Alex, I 100% agree with what you said. The way you put that with the smaller teams trying to come in, and we've already seen the Ole Miss Tulane game, and it wasn't pretty. So yeah, it would be kind of interesting how they're going to fix that issue.
But the game that we are here to talk about, Texas A&M and the Miami Hurricanes at Kyle Field. It's an 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern kick on ABC. But we're going straight into this. Players to watch in this game. For me, I started off at quarterback with both teams' quarterbacks are both really good quarterbacks, athletic. So Marcel Reed, you have to think about putting him in the mix. Until we lost to Texas, he was in the thick of the Heisman race. You had a Heisman contender until you lost to Texas at the end of the year. So I want to go to Alex on this. How much of a factor do you think Marcel Reed will be in this game against Miami, against a really good Miami defense?
Absolutely massive. Because he has so many different ways to hurt you. His mobility to me it's going to be a huge test for Miami, because like up to this point, just based on the way Miami's schedule played out this year, they have faced a number of mobile quarterbacks already this season. So they kind of have like the blueprint for how to approach it. But I have referred to Marcel Reed as the final boss of the running quarterbacks, because I think he's more dangerous than the other ones Miami has faced this year. Tommy Castellanos at Florida State, Byron Brown at USF, DJ Lagway kinda with Florida, but then Kevin Jennings with SMU and Kyron Drones at Virginia Tech. Like they've faced a bunch of quarterbacks with mobility, and like the good news for Miami is they've passed those tests. I mean, out of those 5 quarterbacks, they gave up a combined 74 rushing yards against those 5. So it's like Miami has the blueprint to defend a mobile quarterback, but obviously Marcel Reed is going to try to rip that blueprint up and gash Miami. So yeah, I mean, he's super dangerous, and it's not just on the ground, as you guys know better than anyone. Explosive plays when you're going up against receivers like Mario Craver and Kevin Concepcion, especially. Miami faced Concepcion a couple of years ago when he was at NC State, and he actually had a really good game against Miami. So different defenders and different defensive coordinator now for Miami. So it could be a different story. So I just think, to me, fellas, the big emphasis for Miami is going to be just try to make Reed as uncomfortable as you possibly can with your pass rush. I mean, that's been Miami's blueprint all season long. So Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor are just going to try to keep Reed off balance all game long, and that's what Miami's going to have to do to have success against him.
And you mentioned the new defensive coordinator, Jason Taylor,
It's
former
actually
Miami Dolphins.
Corey Heatherman is the DC. Jason Taylor's the defensive line coach.
Yeah. And then you have Shannon Dawson, who's the new offense coordinator, who was Cam Ward's quarterback coach last season.
Yeah, and Dawson, it kind of took Dawson with the offense. Things weren't really in rhythm right away this year. I think there was a little of an extra adjustment since Carson Beck wasn't healthy for spring football. I think it put them a little bit behind, just sort of with his comfort level in the offense. So, like, obviously Miami was able to have success. Like, early in the year, they started the season 5-0, including a good win against Notre Dame. Then they stumbled in the middle part of the year. They had a loss to Louisville and then the loss to SMU 2 weeks later. And the offense had really gotten stale at that point. It was a lot of running into the A gap. It wasn't a whole lot of creativity and not really finding their playmakers on the perimeter as much. But then, Shannon Dawson as the OC kind of got in his bag after that. Very encouraging the way Miami finished the season. Things were a lot more creative, a lot more explosive, and Malachi Toney became a much bigger factor. Miami's sensational freshman wide receiver. He had a good season in total, but later in the year, he got a lot more comfortable. And there's a lot of similarities between Toney and Concepcion. Very similar players because Toney, they also get the football in his hands as a runner. They have a wildcat package they refer to as the Malicat for Malachi. And he's also thrown 2 touchdown passes this year. And I would imagine, guys, that if you put the over-under on like a half a passing attempt for Toney, it's going to go over. I think he's going to attempt 1 or 2 passes as he usually does this weekend. So they're going to try to get Toney involved as much as possible. So, again, Miami finished the season on a really good offensive rhythm, and Carson Beck was playing his best ball. Yeah, I think from the Miami side, you just have to hope that even after 3 weeks between games that you can kind of carry over some of that momentum into this one.
Yeah, well stated. Yeah, Malachi, he's come in and he's just, as a freshman, done such a great job of just all phases of the game being available and ready to take that ball. So that's what stood out to me when I was looking over Miami.
And then quarterback on the other side, Carson Beck, former SEC quarterback. He's played in front of big crowds when he was in Georgia. But this year, Miami, the biggest crowd they've played in front of was like, 67,000, I think I saw somewhere. So how much do you think going to College Station will affect Miami and Carson Beck?
Yeah, it's a great question because there's not that many of those stadiums left that hold over 100K. Like it's a different beast when you go into a stadium like that. I think the big thing for me, I don't worry as much about like player nerves. I think it's good to have a guy like Beck with all of his experience, but what I am a little worried about is all of the crowd noise kind of inducing Miami into pre-snap penalties. Miami has had an issue at times throughout the year of just excessive false start penalties, and usually, you can help create that with 110,000 crazy people screaming. So, I mean, that's they're going to have some kind of an adjustment to be able to work around that, whether it be, silent counts and things of that nature, and just really drill it. I'm sure they've been doing that this week because it's definitely something concerning. I think anytime you're in an environment like that, you want to be able to either start fast or just like keep the game close early because God forbid, you fall behind by 2 scores and then it just turns into an asylum, like the fanfare and stuff. So, I mean, you want to do as much as you can. I mean, if Miami has an opportunity to, to try to take a lead early in the game, just try to take a little of the juice away from that crowd. And certainly, we're talking about Carson Beck here. And like he's obviously he's a guy who's had some ups and downs throughout his career. People will point to some of the multi-interception games that he's had. He hasn't had a multi-interception game, since
SMU.
The SMU game, which was weird because one of those was a tipped ball that was not really his fault, but it was there. It was a multi-interception game. The really bad one though was against Louisville, where he threw 4 INTs. Like that was a horror show.
And
but
first loss of the year. First loss
Yeah.
of the year for Miami.
That was the first loss of the year. So, he ended the season strong. 11 touchdown passes to 1 interception the final 4 games. So I think if Miami's able to get a steady-handed Carson Beck, I think they're going to be able to stay right in this football game.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. If they get those third downs where they're third and long, that crowd is just gonna ramp up and they're just gonna roar and they're gonna try to will the defense to make a big play, and that's what A&M's been good at this whole season is making those big plays on third and long, getting in the backfield, disturbing the quarterback, making
Yeah, I
him
can see that
make
with
a
a guy
bad
like
play.
Cassius Howell having 11 and a half sacks. Third and long is not where I want to be.
Yep.
Because knowing how Mike Elko is, he will pin his ears back and come after you on third and long. But then you get to the receiving game. Both Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, both really effective guys. Like, look at Mario Craver against Notre Dame, 7 catches for 207, one of those being an 86-yard catch and run, which I was there for.
Yeah. Yeah, Mario Craver, you're speaking about him. He kind of cooled off toward the end of the season, and I think it had to do with just the grind of the SEC. And he was getting in. He got injured there toward the end, and just wasn't able to be as explosive as he was and have those quick feet. And so, after the rest that he's got here through the couple of weeks before we play this game here on Saturday, I'm looking for Mario Craver to look like Mario Craver at the beginning of the season because he's gotten some time to rest and get that injury healed up and everything. So.
Yeah, and both of these guys I know are going to give some extra headaches and prep time for Miami's defensive coordinator Corey Heatherman, because these guys are game breakers. Big reasons why Texas A&M has one of the most explosive offenses in the country. Miami has a good defensive backfield, but it's still like if you give Reed too much time to throw, KC and Craver, they're gonna find ways to get open, right? I mean, Miami's got some good physical matchups with corners like Xavier Lucas and OJ Frederic, and hopefully a big boost for Miami. I know that there's a couple of injury questions for both teams. Like I know the A&M fans are wondering like how good to go is Le'Veon Moss after all the time he missed for the Aggies offense. Like for Miami, the big injury question is Keontae Scott, who was their top graded defensive back this year. He starts at nickel corner for Miami. He missed the last 2 games of the regular season with a toe injury, and it felt like a season-ending thing at the time. But with all the extra time off, he's expecting to play. Like I don't know if this is going to be like he's able to go 45, 55 snaps, or if it's like maybe 15, 20 snaps. But if Miami can get Keontae Scott on the field, he's not only like the type of guy who can, I think, match up about as well as you can with someone like Concepcion, at least give you a chance, but then also Keontae Scott is really dangerous as a blitzer. He's actually, there was a time early in the season where he had more sacks than Ruben Bain did. Like he's a real threat on blitzes. So it's someone that, from a Miami point of view, he can really help their defense if he plays and if he can play a lot.
So
Wow. Yeah.
what I'm looking at, Nikar and Ray Joseph are both out in Coral Gables.
Yeah, they're going to hit the portal. Neither of them would have been factors in this game. They just, I mean, Ray maybe would have gotten a couple snaps, but he's so Ray Joseph, and I really like him. So he's been 3 years on Miami's roster, but he has had probably the worst timing possible because his first 2 years, he's a slot receiver sitting behind Xavier Restrepo for his first 2 years. And then you get to year 3. You're thinking maybe this is the year for Ray Joseph. And then Malachi Tony shows up and, takes his job as at the time a 17-year-old true freshman. And, Tony's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I can understand like Ray, he probably wouldn't have been a factor this weekend. And Nikar hasn't really played this year. Miami's got a pretty deep receiver room, but I like Carr. He's originally from Georgia, so he could end up somewhere in the SEC.
Georgia,
really good
Georgia
player.
Tech.
Yeah.
or like a Georgia Southern or Georgia State.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think I think he could probably do a little bit better than Georgia Southern, but maybe Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech could be an option for him if it's not somewhere in the SEC. Sure.
And then to the Miami side, a guy you just mentioned, Malachi Tony, lethal threat. If you go through here, he had 400 plus yard receiving games.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
he had a what 1,246 all-purpose yards, and that's insane for a freshman, in my opinion.
And
yeah,
like
and the thing about Tony that I think has been the most impressive is like no moment has been too big for him. You know, he made his debut. It was a home game, but he made his debut against Notre Dame and he caught a touchdown and had a big game. And it's just been, full speed ahead for him all season long. And Tony, he does so much. Like he takes on so much responsibility, as a part-time Wildcat quarterback. He was actually a state champion quarterback in high school. So he's got a good arm. Like when you see Tony throw, like it doesn't look like a receiver throwing a pass. It's like, oh, this looks like a former quarterback. And I think just the impressive thing is how much they've put on his plate. I mean, you see the last couple games of the regular season, 13 receptions, 12 receptions. Like they've given him more responsibility. And I know A&M is aware. Like I know that they've studied the tape and they're gonna, obviously they're gonna try to give him extra attention and bracket him. But the thing, like, still hopeful Tony can have an impact on this game because even when he's not catching passes, if he gets that extra attention, he can be a good decoy. And also, Miami finds so many different ways to put the football in his hands. Even if he has kind of a slow receiving game, he might throw for a first down or a touchdown. He might pick one up on a jet sweep. So you could just expect Malachi's going to have probably upwards of 10 touches in this game one way or another.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned that's where A&M focus is going to be, and one of the things that the secondary and A&M has done well this year is they've been able to kind of neutralize big players. So like Cam Coleman for Auburn, they did a good job shutting him down and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see how well A&M will be able to come up with a scheme to slow Malachi down. That'll be a big chess piece in this game.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, and absolutely, and that's why I think it's important that Miami's going to need some of their other receivers to step up because if they're over reliant on Tony, I don't think it's going to go well. So they need, C.J. Daniels and Keelan Marion are their other two top receivers. Like they need those guys to have an impact on the game because if you put too much on Tony's shoulders, it's going to be tough against a good defense like that.
But you got to talk Ruben Owens also. Ruben Owens can do it all. He can run, he can catch it. Like he didn't really get his bearings going until late in the year after Le'Veon Moss went down.
Yep. Yeah,
I got a lot of respect for Ruben. I remember, covering him when he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. I knew wherever he ended up, man, he was going to be a playmaker. I think it's a testament to the Aggies' depth when a guy like Le'Veon Moss goes down and Owens is able to step up and play the way that he has. It's just massive.
Yeah, and Ruben's like one of those players that has not really had a chance to break out and just be the star because one, he was behind Le'Veon Moss, and two, he's been injured almost 2 years in a row. So he's going to want to get in here. He's going to want to make plays. So he's chomping at the bit,
Yeah, exactly. And like, if Le'Veon does leave after this year, this is most likely going to be Ruben Owens' backfield next year.
Yep.
Exactly how it was when Isaiah Spiller left, and it was A-Chain's backfield.
Yep.
But Mark Fletcher, a decent running back for Miami, not explosive, but he can do it. He's one of those kind of running backs that if you put the ball in his hands, he can pick up the yards.
Yeah, the thing with Fletcher is what he does throughout a game, kind of the idea is he's going to wear you down for the fourth quarter, because the guy is gigantic. His nickname going back to when he was in high school in South Florida was "Put him on a stretcher, Fletcher." Like he seeks out
Stretcher.
contact. He has a history of running over guys on occasion. It's this type of thing where if you get Fletcher some carries in the first and second quarter, it's going to start to soften you up a little bit for the third quarter. So yeah, I mean he's really he's excellent in the red zone. He can create touchdowns. He's really good in short yardage. Miami's got a couple backs that are good in short yardage. Marty Brown is another one who's good on like third and fourth and short. But like you said, like he's probably not going to break off a 60-yard run. If he does, that's got to be a real busted play by the defense. That's probably not going to happen. A chunk play for Fletcher is like a 12, 15-yarder. So he's not a home run hitter, but he's someone, if he's able to get positive yardage, it starts to wear you down throughout the game.
And then we head to the defensive side. Torian York, captain, he leads this team in tackles. And he when he's effective, you see it.
Yep. In my opinion, with York, he's one of those players that he's got so much between the ears. He's watched the tape. He knows what's getting ready to happen. He will literally be pointing out the play to the rest of the defense right as the play is developing, and that's what Torian York. He may not be the biggest, he may not be the fastest, but he knows where the ball's going because he's watched the tape, and that's what makes him such a good linebacker because he's the brain of that defense. So yeah, that's York.
And I think for a guy like York and for Miami's linebackers as well, the linebacker play in this game, when you've got guys who can create yak, which both teams have, can turn short gains into explosive plays. Like linebacker awareness and tackling is going to be so important because if York has a great game, that could involve slowing down Malachi Toney, could involve slowing down a guy like Gerard Pringle, who's kind of Miami's like shiftier, more home run hitter running back, who's going to get some work along with Fletcher. So yeah, I mean, I think York is going to have a huge effect on this game.
And then you go to the big boy up front for Miami.
Yeah, Keem Mesidor. He obviously plays really, really, really well with the extra attention that Ruben Bain draws on the other side. But there were a couple occasions when Bain didn't play this year and Mesidor got plenty of work done. He actually has more sacks than Bain this season. And the thing about Mesidor, he's not only an effective pass rusher, and he's got good pass rushing moves, he's also a really effective run stopper. So I think that's a valuable tool, because a lot of times when you've got a really effective defensive end who's a really good pass rusher, like, well, we should run it right at that guy. He's probably not as good stopping the run, but Mesidor is really well-rounded, and this is like, I think he's a 6-year senior. I know he's a senior. I think definitely over 5. I think he's a 6-year guy, so he's had he's a super senior. So there's a lot of intelligence and awareness on his side as well. He's definitely someone Miami needs Akeem Mesidor to be a factor on Saturday.
Yep, that's the chess match that we're going to be watching, the A&M's offensive line versus these two defensive linemen.
That guard center triangle.
Yep.
If you can get that guard center triangle to take over a game, that could possibly take him out and force everything onto outside of Cassius Howell to the other guy from Miami they were going to hit on. But Cassius Howell, having one of his best years in college, presumed early to mid first round pick, just like Ruben Bain. 11.5 sacks on the year. Whatever he's doing is working.
Yeah, and for A&M to win and dominate on the defensive side, to get Carson Beck flustered, Cassius Howell is going to have to come to play. And if he doesn't get home and he doesn't get there, even if he's in the backfield making Carson dance
Wet.
and get his feet moving. That's where Cassius Howe is going to be valuable. So we'll have to see how effective he is at actually getting that done.
Yeah, and on that note, it's like Carson does not have the same superpower that Marcel Reed has, where he doesn't throw well on the run back. Like there's a big difference in Carson Beck with a clean pocket versus Beck without a clean pocket, and so. When I started, I guess it was 2 Sundays ago when we learned that this matchup was going to happen, and I started studying the Aggies a little bit more, and I'm like 11 and a half set, like that number, like that was, it made my jaw drop a little, because I knew Howell was having a good year. I didn't realize he was in double digits on sacks on the season. So there's going to be some dynamite matchups. I know he can line up on either side. So when he's lined up against Miami's right side, he'd be going up against Francis Maui-Noa, who's a projected first-round pick at right tackle. That will be an awesome matchup. Miami's got a very good left tackle as well, not as elite as the right tackle, but Markel Bell. So when Howell's lined up on his right side, on Miami's left side, they might try to maybe run that matchup a little bit more, because Bell's not quite at the same level as Maui-Noa. So that's going to be really, really important for Markel Bell to be protecting Beck's blind side, because, Miami's kept a very clean pocket for him this year, but, you're going to have to come up with a plan B if Beck doesn't have a clean pocket, because Howell can be a huge factor.
Yeah, and A&M's come up with about 3.5 sacks a game, and since Cassius Howe has done well, but it's been that Mike Elko has disguised the plays, and then they'll come from corner, they'll come from safety, they'll come from the linebacker. They move it around, and they make it hard for the quarterback to understand where the blitz is going to be coming from. So I mean, if A&M does well in that department during this game, that could be the key to, Miami struggling on offense, or A&M, getting, ahead of the counts, on defense, to make Miami play from behind the chain. So that's going to be an interesting chess match that we see this game.
And as we talked about, for Miami, you cannot get into 3rd and long, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, because we know Mike Elko, when you get in that 3rd and long, that 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, the defense will pin their ears back and come after you.
Yep.
And like as you see right here with Cash, he had a sack in every game, at least a half a sack in every game, but 3.
Wow.
UTSA, Samford, and Texas. He had a 3-sack game against Utah State, 3 sacks against Mississippi State, 2 sacks at LSU. And LSU is a good team, don't get me wrong, especially in Death Valley.
Yeah, I mean, they struggled this year, but they had the talent. LSU has, there's talent there on that roster. So yes, yep, he wasn't playing against nobodies.
And then we get to the other guy on the opposite team, Ruben Bain. Big, physical, will take just like Cassius Howe. Ruben Bain can line up anywhere. He can line up inside. He can line up outside. He can drop into coverage, and he can pressure. The sack total doesn't really show it with 4.5 sacks on the year. But he can get in the backfield and throw a quarterback off. And he has an interception this year. And that was off of the double tip ball against Notre Dame.
Yeah, Ruben Bain's sack total is like one of the sort of the biggest mysteries. If and I know you guys are ball knowers and ball watchers. A lot of people who didn't really watch him are like, oh, is he having a bad year? It's just one of those things where I guess he hasn't gotten home a whole lot for whatever reason, but he's in the backfield constantly. And also, I think part of the reason why the sack totals aren't there for him is I think he's forced opposing OCs to scheme so much to whatever side of the field he's not on, and he's changed the way they approach it. A lot of the quarterbacks that have like had more success against Miami are the teams that run a lot of screens and a lot of quick releases just to kind of keep to try to neutralize that pressure because Bain he's been a game wrecker all season long. He's constantly in the backfield, like you said, and I think curious to see how much Miami lines him up inside in this game. Because the speed package for Miami is there because they have depth on the defensive end spots that they're able to line up, backup guys like Marquise Lightfoot and Armando Blunt into the game while moving Bain and Mesidor on the inside to kind of create those like third and long speed packages. So I'll be curious. And obviously you got to force third and longs to be able to do that. So I think that's going to be one of the things we're going to find out about this game because Bain is having a really sensational year, and I'd love nothing more for him because he's put in the time. Like Miami was not very good when he first arrived a couple of years ago. I'd love nothing more for him than it's already a positive season for Miami, but if somebody like that can make a playoff run, I think it would be just something Miami fans would be very appreciative of with all the time he's put in.
And here's where we get into the thick of everything, dealing with how do these two teams stack up. A&M offensively ranks 20th in total yards, averaging just under 455 yards a game. But they're allowing over 300, just under 310. That's 19th in the country. Passing yards, 255, that's 26th. You're on average 193 rushing yards. That's 25th in the league, or in the country. Points per game, 36 points per game. That's 14th. A&M on third down, 40%. So offensively, A&M can beat you from anywhere on the field.
Yeah, and watching this team this year, I think that's the whole reason A&M's had the success they've had. They've gone 11-1 because they can beat you running the ball, they can pass the ball, they have the big play makers and wide receivers. It's just they can come from anywhere, and that dynamic of multiplicity, and then you have not only those skill players, but you have Marcel Reed. When the play breaks down, he can just take it and run. If he sees the corners run off or the linebacker has gone too far to one side of the field, he'll take advantage of that. And so that's why A&M's in the position they are, and especially for the offense. Yep.
Yeah, those are a couple of things like from the Miami side that concerns me the most is how many big plays the Aggies can produce. I mean, if you think you have them, you force a third down, and then all of a sudden they break off a 40, 50-yard gain. And just the dual threat ability, as we talked about with Marcel Reed, he's just very, very unique with how many different ways he can hurt you. So it's a formidable offense that Miami's going up against.
And then looking at Miami, 425 total yards, 270 yards passing, 150 yards on the ground. They're averaging 34 points a game, and they're just under 48% on third down. But defensively, you see it. They're probably one of the top 15, top 20 best defenses in the country. They're on average, they're allowing 277, just under 278 in total yardage. They're allowing just under 169 yards passing, under 87 yards on the ground. They're allowing just under 14 points a game. So they're allowing just under 2 scores a game. And they're on third down, just under 30%.
I think that's what scares me the most so far about the when I'm looking at this matchup is how well it seems like Miami has been able to play defense this year, and if they can slow A&M down and get them off rhythm and not be able to get in a flow and just have to grind and not and kind of like what Texas did to A&M in that second half of the game. If that happens to A&M again, that will be what Miami does to win the game, and that's probably my biggest concern watching or looking at this matchup.
And defense is the reason why Miami's here. Their defense last year, which was not good before they made the coordinator change, was what kept them out of the playoff last season. I mean, their offense last year was number one in the country in most every category, but the defense was in the 60s and 70s in most categories. So they've, the offense has been good this year, not as explosive as it was last year, but the offense has been good enough where since they've been able to flip the defensive script, it's why they've been able to get into this position and something. It's for as physical of a team Miami is, very inconsistent running the football this year, as you can see reflected by being 77th in the country. It's an area they were trending better at the end of the year, and the main reason why they were able to improve on that was they were able to integrate true freshman Gerard Pringle as as a home run guy, because obviously we talked about Fletcher. He's a physical kind of pound him out type of guy. Marty Brown is very similar. Those were the primary two running backs for most of the season, and then Gerard Pringle, who's just a true freshman, was able to kind of get on the field late in the year and just turned out to be a real revelation. So they're hoping to be able to generate that sort of same variety with the running game, which came on later in the year.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see him come on and make a few plays against A&M. You talk about that home run hitter, and that's probably where A&M's defense is most susceptible, is that run game where they misfit and you just get somebody wide open. So, yep, that concerns me as well. Yep.
And then the matchup. Miami 7-1 at home, 3-1 on the road, 9-2 in the ACC, and then 6-2 in the ACC, and then 9-2 in the FBS. A&M, on the other hand, 7-0 at home, 4-1 on the road, 10-1 in FBS, 7-1 in the SEC. The only thing that is scaring me a little bit, Miami has the hot hand. They've won 4 straight.
Yeah, and what scares me on the other side is definitely the home environment for A&M. I know they haven't lost a home game in a very, very long time, and it's this is probably the biggest home game you guys have ever had, I would imagine. I mean, being able to host a playoff game is gigantic. But you're right, Lee, in saying Miami does have the fortune of the way that they ended the season. They've essentially kind of been in their own playoff for the last month because obviously they knew when they lost that second game to SMU, there was no guarantee they would get in regardless, but they knew there was zero margin for error. So they've sort of mentally been in their playoff where, A&M obviously was so set with an 11-0 record. They were able to lose to Texas, and it only hurt their seeding. It didn't hurt their status, whereas, Miami has essentially been in a playoff since November 8th.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And one thing I want to point out, I meant to mention this earlier, but like A&M and Miami, we're the two that kept Notre Dame from getting in to the
That's right.
playoffs. So it's like the battle of the who's better, after they beat Notre Dame.
It was a great matchup. I'm sure the committee probably realized, this would be a fun matchup to make. The two teams that beat Notre Dame, let's have them play.
Yeah, exactly. I almost think that's probably why they did it.
Yeah, that's got to be the one big reason. So, Kyle or Alex, is there anything y'all want to add to this?
The only thing that I'll add is because we covered so much, but special teams is going to be key. I would advise Miami to try not to punt it to Concepcion if possible.
because
Um,
he can go the distance.
Sure can, and I would now one thing Miami does have going for them is their kicker Carter Davis. He sends most of his kickoffs through the end zone, so I'm hoping that he can go however many kickoffs Miami has. If he can bat 1,000 on touchbacks, because that's going to be a big key. Because I know A&M is dynamic in the return game. Miami's pretty good, not as successful. Malachi Tony, kind of Miami's version of Concepcion. He returns punts, and he's been pretty good. Didn't take one to the house, though, this year. But I would imagine both teams are going to try, not to punt it at Tony and KC very often.
Yeah, that great point. Yeah, I mean, why would you allow these game changers to get the ball in their hand? Because that they could literally change the game. They make a couple guys miss and they get into the open, and it's just game over from there, especially with KC. I mean, I was when he ran it back and he would get to almost running out of bounds, and then he would just cut back, and he just makes people look just so like elementary when it should have been just a routine tackle. So yeah, you just why give KC the chance?
Well, gentlemen, this, as we've said all night, this is the game to watch this weekend over the likes of Alabama. And
yeah, I'll make one last comment. The only unfortunate part is that it's playing at 11 a.m. and the only reason we're playing the big time game on Saturday 11 a.m. is because they don't want to butt up against the NFL, which plays later in the day. And so if it hadn't
right.
if it hadn't been for the NFL games, I'm sure this would have been a night game. But they want to get as many eyes on this game at that morning slot or early afternoon. So yeah.
well, gentlemen, this has been fun. And of course, Alex, thank you for coming in. And we do want to go ahead and say we hope everybody has a great Christmas, including our guest here.
What?
Thank you.
So Lee, but we got to do your picks. You got to pick the scores, right?
I'm not going to go that far.
No? Okay.
He has kicked my tail all year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I'll throw mine out there if you want.
So I've been to 2 A&M games this year. Notre Dame, at Notre Dame, and then the Florida game. Who Miami beat both of.
That's right. Yeah. To the two common opponents. How about that?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a close game all the way to the end. I mean, if A&M can contain Malachi, that'll kind of be, I think, the big deal. I'm gonna go with a close one. I think it's gonna be just like a touchdown difference, like whoever has the ball last, like a 28-21 kind of score. That's kind of where I think it's gonna be. Of course, I'm gonna the bias in me is gonna go for A&M, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. I mean, the bias in me will go Miami 31-24.
Okay.
I think there's going to be some points because you got explosive players on both sides, but I think it's going to be a heck of a game.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Aggie fans, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Thanks, and gig 'em.
Gig 'em.